Good morning, class. I was contacted by one of your classmates asking to expand on problem 30 and how I got the 800. And I'm going to go over that. And just in case, I'm going to also solve problem 29 to see how you solve that when you're asking the sample size if the standard deviation of the sums and when you ask the sample size if the mean of the sums. Right here, let's remove this equality sign. Well, you have to remember that the sum of the values right here, the sum of your values is the same as your x on this equation, and the mean of the population is equals to the mean or x bar of your sample. The standard deviation is going to be equals to the standard deviation of the population, or sigma, is equals to the standard deviation of the sample, which is represented by the letter S, and right here N for your sample size. We have that the mean of the sums formula is, this is where the confusion was created, which I should have put it this symbol right here for the sum. We know that the formula for the mean of the sums is the sum of the values is equals to the sample size times the mean of the population. And we know the standard deviation of the sums is represented by the sum of the values, which is equals to the square root of the sample times the standard deviation of the population. Why I put it down here? Well, if you are being provided, for example, in problem 30, let's start with that. An unknown distribution has a mean of 19, a standard deviation of 20. What is the sample size? Well, we don't have the sample size. That's what we're going to be solving for. We're going to be solving for n. That's what I refer to this formula yesterday over here. It might have confused you. And it says, what is the sample size if the mean of the sums is 15,200? So you know the sum of your values is 15,200. Well, it's asking what is the sample size if the mean of the sums, if this whole formula right here is 15,200, 15,200. Therefore, we have every value but the sample size, so we're going to be solving by n. Okay, so let's go and solve that. We have the sum of the values, which is 15,200, equals to, we're solving for n, times your mean, and that should be your equation. You know that I don't like moving, I leave the way they are. So let's do now, we're dividing both sides by 19. Correct, let me make it a little bigger over here. We're dividing both sides by 19, so 15,200 divided by 19. And now solve for x. So n is going to be equals to 15,200 divided by 19. And when we solve for x, we find that the sample size is 800. That's how I found this value right here. Okay. Now, if you're asked on your midterm, for example, what is the sample size if the standard deviation of the sums is 42? Well, let's solve problem 29 just in case. Again, well, the sum of your values is 42. Your mean is 25. Your standard deviation is 6, correct? And you're trying to define right here. It has a mean of 25, standard deviation is 6. What is the sample size if the standard deviation of the sums is 42? So let's use this formula, the standard deviation of the sums, which I put it down here. So let me go ahead and copy. We don't have the sample size. So this is the value that we're going to be solving for. So we have the sum of the values, 42, equals to my square root of n. which I can get rid of the parentheses, times, and we do have the standard deviation right here, 6, correct? I don't know, let me format this here, hopefully it won't change it. Okay, so now let's solve for n. On this side, I would divide, if you divide both sides by 6, we're gonna have 42 divided by 6 um, equals to the square root of n. So if you do 42 divided by 6, it's 7, and then equals to the square root of n. Now you have a radical symbol sign right here, which is a square root. And in order to get rid of that square root, we're going to have to square both sides, correct? That's algebra, basic algebra. So if you square both sides, you're going to have equals to, I'm squaring that, or you could do times 7, but let's just keep it like this. Oh, yeah, that's correct. And now we have got rid of the square root because we squared n as well. Therefore, n is equals to 49. So my sample size for problem 29 would be a 49. And that's how I solve problems 29 and 30. Thank you.